This is the first time you're leaving the house and you're like, might be the last time I ever look at them.
Right before we go to the airport, I take final pictures with my kids. The whole time I'm thinking to myself, like, I wonder which picture they're going to use at my funeral.
I just want to know if the weight of the air changes when you finally see, like, okay, I am going into Gaza right now.
There's over 10, 15, 20, whatever hospitals normally in Gaza. At the time we were there, only 2 were fully functioning. So they're bombing all night long. People are stuck under the rubble all night long. People aren't showing up to the hospital until like late morning.
Was it better or like worse than what you already had anticipated?
100 times worse. The medical equipment, everything that they have there in Gaza is stuff that we would consider here to be unacceptable. He had both of his legs amputated because living outside, all this stuff. He ended up coming back to the hospital with maggots coming out of both of his legs.
Being there, did you find yourself getting emotional?
No matter how much you cry, this patient's leg isn't getting any straighter unless you do a good job. You just think about how privileged we are.
Was there a point where you thought that this might be it? I might be gone? Before we start today's episode, I just wanted to thank you for taking the time out of your day and giving this podcast a listen. And I also wanted to remind you that the only way this podcast will ever grow is with your support and with your help. So subscribe to the podcast, like this video, and now let's get the show started. Welcome aboard Middle East Airlines.
والمتوجهة إلى طيران الشرق الأوسط يرحب مدينة فاس العربية.
Dr. Adam, welcome. Alhamdulillah, how are you?
Good, alhamdulillah. Thank you for having me.
Of course,
to connect.
of course.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Adam, I wanted to start this off.
Can we just not do the doctor thing, please? Just Adam.
Just Adam.
Just Adam. That's fine.
Okay.
It's weird. It's not. I feel like it's like old country when we call it like doctor. But just Adam.
Khalas, Adam.
Yeah.
Adam, when you think about everything that you do day to day, but like, see how you just said without the doctor thing?
Yeah.
Because that's a very big part of your life to how we see Adam, right? But when Adam is alone, maybe at night or having some time off to himself, and you self-reflect and be like, who am I? What am I really doing? I want to know who that Adam is.
That's deep. That's a good one to start, man. That's good. All right, bismillah. Let's see. I mean, immediately what comes to mind is a father of the 3 most beautiful kids in the world, a husband of a loving wife, and then I think of myself as, you know, a doctor, surgeon, kind of after that. The big thing at night that I think about is trying to fulfill those roles as best I can. And I mean, anyone who has kids will tell you that it's like every night you're like, man, I was a little too harsh on him. I should have done this, or I should have played a little bit more with them with this, or I was, you know, sometimes work life kind of, especially for me, work life creeps into family life. It's hard to separate it when I'm on call or whatever. And, you know, my kids notice that I'm on my phone when I'm on call and they're like begging me. Like, those are the things that like really keep me up, you know. And then it's the responsibility I have to my patients. One of my biggest fears is inadequacy. You know, if someone puts their life in not their life, but, you know, their limb or whatever in my hands, and they're kind of expecting me to fix everything. Mm-hmm. And with my training, with my designation, with my credentials, I should be able to. And so that's a big fear of mine, is not being able to like live up to that role for sure.
Do you feel bad when you see your kids calling you, well, come play, and then know?
It tears you apart. It tears you apart. It's the worst feeling in the world, especially my son. He's like 5.5, almost 6. He picks up on these social cues so quickly and so easily. As soon as my eyes divert away from something and I like glance at my phone to like look at a text message from one of the residents or something like that, right away he's like, Baba, put the phone down. Let's like, yeah, he's ruthless. Kids don't know how to hold anything back. They'll speak their heart just as it is, you know. And it hurts when that happens for sure.
Is there like a kind of, I got better at doing that? Like better at maybe not letting them feel that you have to take this phone call, like from the time you started till now?
A little bit. I mean, I'm in my 4th year of practice now, and in any field you're in, whatever you're doing, after 4 years, more growth, more comfort and stuff like that. So there's a little bit less anxiety as far as like taking call and being connected to the phone and stuff. But it's still a struggle. I mean, even if it only happens once a day where he calls me out on it, like that one time still sticks and it still hurts.
So you're a trauma surgeon.
Yeah.
I was actually, I was telling my sister about like doing this episode and stuff, and I told her Dr. Adam's a trauma surgeon, and she asked a good question. I know what trauma surgeon does, but she was like, I thought trauma was really focused on like mental health trauma and like if something happened like when you were younger. But for those who don't know, what do you do? What is a trauma surgeon?
Yeah. So specifically, I'm an orthopedic trauma surgeon. So within the field of orthopedics, there's a lot of different subspecialties. One of them is trauma. So my specialty is basically broken bones. That's pretty much what I do, almost exclusively, is just deal with broken bones. So
I'm thrilled to announce that the first sponsor of this podcast is something that I use every single day, and that's Whoop. Whoop is a fitness wearable that I got originally because I needed something comfortable to track my sleep, and I was training jiu-jitsu and I needed something to track the workout without getting in the way. And Whoop does exactly that with its accessories. Whoop changed the way I personally live my life, and I think it can do the same for you too. All you have to do is go to join.whoop.com/notfromhere, and that'll give you a free month to try Whoop out for yourself and see how you like it. And now, back to the episode. How do you get that phone call that we're going to Gaza?
Yeah, it was, I mean, I guess it didn't happen by chance, but I put my name in in some WhatsApp groups for like doctors available to go to Gaza.
Oh, so you wanted to go?
I wanted to go.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to go. There's kind of like a backstory I mean, we all want to go to Gaza, of course. Everyone wants to go. Everyone wants to help. Like we see, regardless if you're Arab or not, like, I mean, I'm Arab, so I can say like, these are my people that are so suffering big time, but I'm sure everyone wants to go and help in whatever capacity they can.
Because we do feel helpless over here looking at what's happening.
Yeah. I mean, even getting money over there is hard. It's like, what can you really do, other than just keep praying and dua and stuff. But
then that's a better question. What's the process of how you got there? Tell me the whole backstory.
So we're going to go way back.
Yes, sir.
How it all kind of led me to orthopedic trauma. I was in med school, and I actually thought I was going to be a pediatrician my whole life. I get to med school, I do my pediatrics rotation. I absolutely hated it. So now I'm like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do. My life is over. I'm like $200,000 in debt. I don't know what I'm doing, Thankfully, I found orthopedics, fell in love with orthopedics. I was very, very lucky to get in. I applied late. Orthopedics is a competitive field, and I didn't have any research. I didn't have any connections. So I basically promised myself that no one's going to outwork me. And so on all my rotations, I worked. Alhamdulillah, paid off. I got accepted. And then once you're doing your orthopedic residency, the next step is figuring out if you want to do a fellowship, which is like subspecialty training.
Okay.
And it came down, for me personally, it came down between joint replacement specialty or trauma specialty. And discussing it with my wife at the time, we were thinking, let's do trauma because inshallah, if God ever gives us the opportunity, trauma would be it will put me in a better position to serve the imam of the time, inshallah.
Inshallah.
So that was kind of like the decision-making process and all that stuff. And
that's an odd thing, though.
What's that?
It's thinking about the imam while you're making, like doctors, when they're really making the decision, it comes down to what do they like while doing the rotations, and what can maybe be the best thing for them to provide for their families, because you're 10 plus years into school and you're all in all this debt. the thinking really goes, how much money can I make, and what do I like to do?
Yeah.
So that's an interesting.
Yeah.
That very little did I hear that. So please explain.
Yeah, I mean, we were just both at a time in our life where we were just growing spiritually, and let's see, we had just gotten married. You know, we didn't have kids at the time, and yeah, it was. It just came so naturally to us that this is something that, like I said, if God ever grants me the ability to, and I want to be as useful as possible in whatever capacity I can, at least that this is something I can offer.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, inshallah, we get the opportunity to clean a bathroom for the sake of the, you know, I mean, whatever it is.
Of
but
course.
if I can offer something that I'm
That's
trained
beautiful.
at and I'm good at, you know, inshallah, I get the opportunity to, then I can fulfill that. And so that was kind of like the niyyah that I made going into it, that I was doing this for the sake of God and to help the imam, inshallah. And I never have had the opportunity to do a mission trip before. I've been to like different fundraisers for different events and like learning about different hospitals overseas and all that stuff and wanting to get involved. And I've like emailed people like, hey, I'm a trauma surgeon. Like, I'm willing to volunteer. Nobody ever got back to me. And then this test came. So the reason I call it a test is I had a ziyarah trip planned with me and my son for like 6 months.
Really?
Yeah. And, you know, I had set everything up. I had taken time off of work. My partners knew I was going to be gone for, you know, a couple of weeks at the end of December for a ziyarah trip. I had canceled my clinics. Everything was ready to go. And then just a week and a half, 2 weeks before the Gaza mission trip happened, someone had reached out to me because they found my name in the WhatsApp group. And they're like, hey, we're looking for an orthopedic trauma surgeon to join us on this trip. If you can get your paperwork done, you can join us. And
what's that moment like when you read those words? Or
I was
it
shocked.
a call? Was it?
It was a WhatsApp text. It was a WhatsApp text. His name is Amjad. He's honest to God, one of the greatest people I've met. He's a surgeon in Canada, Egyptian background, so modest, so nice, so humble. Wallah, he's the man. And I thankfully I got to know him more during the trip. But yeah, I just get a random WhatsApp text from a number I don't know. The icon, like his like icon for his contact is Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So I'm like, all right, this guy's legit. You know what I mean? And so yeah, I get it, and I'm thinking, you know, let me hear more about this. And then I text him like, well, when are you guys going? And it's the exact same dates I was scheduled to be in ziyarah. Yeah. So immediately I knew, like, it was like Allah kind of like calling my bluff.
Yeah.
Like, you say you want to help. Okay, let's see. Are you really up for it? And alhamdulillah, man, I was able to go.
So you get the text. They tell you it's the same dates. It's not just a regular mission trip. It's a very dangerous, very one of a kind type of mission trip. What's the conversation like before getting to the family with your wife, with your kids? How do you approach that conversation?
Yeah. So as soon as I got the text, I was dead set on going. I knew I was going to go. Like you said, this is a once in a lifetime trip. And you see the videos and the pictures online and your heart is just crying and screaming, and I get the opportunity to go and I'm going to do it. So I knew 100% I was going to go. It took a little bit of convincing for my wife to finally agree to it.
Rightfully so. It's not.
Yeah. Oh no, for sure. I mean, God forbid something happens to me over there. She's, widowed, 3 kids, all below 6 years old. It's a lot to handle for sure. But alhamdulillah, she was on board too. I mean, she was able to support me through it all. The biggest thing, like the only thing that was like kind of holding me back was my son Muhammad, how I had to cancel the ziyarah trip on him because he knew about the ziyarah trip. Like we planned it in the summertime, and he doesn't understand like days and months or whatever. So it was the summertime back then, and he's like, I want to go see Imam Hussein because he thought we were going like tomorrow when I told him about it. I'm like, no, Baba, when it starts to snow, then we can go see Imam Hussein. Like I'm trying to like kind of get the
Yeah.
concept of winter. And like a couple weeks before that, we had like a major snowfall. And he's like, Baba, it's snowing. We're going to go see him out. I'm like, man, this guy remembered. So I knew he was going to kind of be like sad when I had to cancel on him. And that was the only reservation I had. When I would talk to my wife, I'm like, man, how am I going to break it to the king that we can't go to Ziyara this year?
How did you break it to him?
It's so anticlimactic. I thought we were going to have like a moment and he was going to cry and tell me he loves me. I told him about it and he was like, all right, whatever. He just like went to go play with something else.
Okay,
like,
okay.
So he let me off the hook easily.
What about family?
Yeah.
Your siblings, your
Yeah.
parents?
Yeah. So I actually didn't want to tell anyone.
Really?
I wanted to go and I mean, obviously I was going to tell my wife.
Yeah.
Actually didn't want to tell anyone.
But like as far as siblings and parents?
Yeah, I didn't want to tell anyone.
Wow.
I wanted to keep my intentions as pure as possible. I didn't want people calling me, praising me. I didn't want people trying to talk me out of it. You know, like I had made up my mind. I knew that it was a good cause. It was a good mission. And I just wanted to kind of just be at peace with things.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't want all these external factors coming into it. And I actually didn't tell anyone until like the day before. Eventually, my wife was like, you know, if something happens to you, people should know that you went. Like you should say your final goodbyes to people and all that stuff. So I called my mom and I told her. She was overseas at the time.
Okay.
So I called her and told her. And
what does your mom tell you?
What's that?
What does your mom tell you?
So my mom's reaction may be a little bit different than other people's, you know, families and whatnot. So
Of course.
we're not, my family isn't necessarily a stranger to death.
Mm.
So I lost my father when I was younger,
Allah yarhamu.
Allah yarhamu, and I lost my brother also a year after.
Mm.
So this was when I was in high school. So, you know, my mom has kind of been bearing that burden for a while with raising, you know, after my dad died, we were 5 kids. She was raising 5 kids by herself, and then my brother died, so now 4 kids. And, you know, you know, her immediate family is all in Lebanon. My dad's side of the family is here. So, you know, she didn't have her immediate family with her at all times and stuff. So she's learned how to cope with and deal with death and all that stuff. And so when I told her that I was going to go, there was no resistance on her part. It was all just complete support. And she said, you know, Salamat ulad ila Allah. And so she was at peace with everything, you know. So alhamdulillah, that made it a lot easier. I don't cry much, but I was definitely bawling when I made that phone call, for sure. And then honestly, I think everybody else, I just sent them. I'm bad at the deep conversation stuff. So I just sent everyone just like a WhatsApp message, like, "Hey, I'm going." Like,
Really? That's it?
I mean, it was maybe a little bit more involved. I was, you know, I asked forgiveness from people, like, sorry if I hurt you, sorry if I offended you, please forgive me. And, you know, I told people, please don't praise me. Please don't try to talk me out of this. I just want to let you guys know that I'm going, just so everybody's aware. And yeah, that was the day before. And then I went.
Before you go, there's the final goodbye where you don't know if you're coming back and you're saying goodbye to your wife and your 3 kids.
Yeah.
How's that like? Knowing that you're actually, this is the first time in your life.
Yeah.
You're actually going, we could die every single day.
For sure. Yeah.
But this is the first time you're leaving the house and you're like, might be the last time I ever look at them.
Yeah. Yeah.
How is that like?
That definitely happened. So I'm just going to move this a little.
Yeah, go ahead.
So before the final goodbyes to my immediate family was the final goodbyes to a lot of families, a lot of family and friends. When people heard that I was going, you know, subhanAllah, it's like, I don't want to say near-death experience because it's not like I was like staring down the barrel of a gun, but like the opportunity for death experience, if that's what you want to call it, the possibility of dying is so real. When people found out that I was going, obviously in a time of war zone and stuff, just the outpouring of love and support and everything was just unreal.
Overwhelming.
Oh my God, completely. Like friends that you just kind of dap them up and you give them a hug and you move on. Like people that you see all the time and whatever, people, you take it for granted that everyone's around. Like the way that brothers would hug me and like hold on to me as like the final goodbye, man, wallah, I haven't felt hugs like that in a long time. Like it was like so deep, like the connection of saying bye to my friends. And we're not verbalizing it, but like you said, we all kind of know that I may not come back, and everybody's giving me like gifts and stuff. Like my cousin's husband gave me this ring, a family member gave me this masbaha. They're all with sentimental value and all that stuff, So everyone's just like gifting me, and like just the love and care and support that came out at that time was just unreal. And then the final goodbyes to my immediate family. Right before we go to the airport, I take final pictures with my kids. So we have like stairs that kind of come down at the house. It makes like a little angle, like a little landing, and then a little. So we're taking pictures in that corner. So I take pictures with all my kids, and I'm taking them one at a time afterwards. I take a picture with my wife, and the whole time I'm thinking to myself, like, yeah, these are the, I wonder which picture they're going to use at my funeral. Like, this was a nice picture. Like, this is a nice, like the lighting was nice in this one. Like, this could be, and subhanallah. I've never been in a position like this. Like I said, I've never been in like this near death experience position, but like, honestly, the peace, the tranquility, all from Allah. Like I was at peace with the fact that I could die or I could come back. Whatever happens, kullu from Allah. I'm just going to put it in his hands. And that was for like the week after I got the, okay, things are going, like, let's final plans. Every night my dua was, whether I die, whether I come back, just give me what's best for me. That was the only thing I asked for. I didn't ask for, either ending. I said, just give me what's best for me. So I guess this is what's best for me.
What are the last words that you say?
A lot of I love yous. When you're in that position where you don't know if you're gonna come back, it's like a lot of the day-to-day stuff just like lose its like importance, like its relevance.
Correct.
Like food started to taste kind of different before I left. Like even right before I left, like I wasn't eating as much. Like things just like, it just wasn't important anymore. And I'm like very big on, everyone knows I'm very big on sweets. I eat my dessert before my dinner. Like I just wasn't eating that much anymore. Little differences that you have with people, you just realize like if I die, like this just isn't worth it to think about anymore. Like I'm not going to hold on to this grudge anymore. Like let bygones be bygones. Khalas, let's just move on. It's not worth it, So it's hard to say final goodbyes, because there's so much emotion and time and friendship and camaraderie and years involved in whatever relationship you have. And to sum it up with just one thing, it's really like, it's impossible to do. So you just kind of like default to like, all right, I love you, man. Like, and that's it.
Man, I can't even imagine being in a situation where you have to do that. So I feel like after you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, after you say your goodbyes, you get on that plane, it's game mode, It's like, all right, we said our goodbyes, and now I just have to focus on what am I going to do over there? How is it going to be? Like you start prepping yourself mentally. And I'm pretty sure you probably did that before you went. But after like you push those emotions kind of to the side and be like, all right, now mission starts, right? And from what I understood, you met with the team in Egypt. Yeah. And you discussed things over there?
Yeah, the meeting point was Egypt. Before October 7th, you could, like medical mission trips would frequently go through occupied Palestine to get to Gaza. But after October 7th, that all stopped, right? So now everything has to go through Egypt.
Through Rafah?
Through Rafah.
Okay.
Yeah. So 2 of the surgeons from Canada. The other 3 or 4 of us were from the States. And so we figured it would just be best if we all just met in Egypt rather than trying to meet somewhere else and fly together. So yeah, that was the first time I really met anyone. I didn't know anyone before this.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the guys knew each other from, work or other mission trips or stuff like that. But yeah, this was the first time I was meeting everyone.
And what are the things you discuss, kind of?
So we sit down, we all get there at I think everyone's flight kind of arrives 9-ish at night. We get to the hotel and stuff. And the leader from the organization is he gets us dinner. And the first thing we do is we sign this waiver. Basically hey, if you die, you can't come after us,
Yeah.
And like I said, I was already at peace with that. That wasn't something that was a big shock to me. And I'll be honest, wallah, I don't even remember what that paper said. I don't even remember if I read it. I was just all right, yeah, I signed it, and I just kind of moved on, we're here for a mission.
Right.
We know the risks. This isn't something that's going to
Mm-hmm.
change us. And you can try to plan as much as you want, but there's just so many unknowns.
Right.
So we just have dinner and we're chatting, getting to know each other, and then the plan is, okay, meet at the lobby at 7 a.m. and we get on a bus and Takala Allah, and let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a sign that says Gaza from here? Those signs with the directions with the city? Is there a sign like that? Because I just want to know if the weight of the air changes when you finally see okay, I am going into Gaza right now.
Yeah. So I will say Egypt really sucked the life out of the trip. So we land in Cairo, and then you have to drive across the Sinai Desert to get to Rafah. There are so many checkpoints in Egypt. It was ridiculous. Every single checkpoint, it's the same questions over and over. Okay, get your passports out. Okay, where are you guys going? All right, pull over here. They have extra questions for us. So the first day, there's anywhere from 10 to 15 checkpoints from Cairo to Rafah. First day, the first checkpoint we get held at 4.5 hours. Wow. Yeah.
What do they ask?
Nothing. They just literally had us parked. There's a line of people parked. Everyone's just waiting. And, they got to wait for the minister of this, talk to the minister of this, to do this and whatever. And, we're trying to tell them we're approved by the WHO to come in and all that stuff. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's just kids with guns controlling the checkpoints or whatever. So the first day was so bogged down with checkpoints that by the time we got to the border was closed for the night.
Oh.
So we head back to Egypt, take another half hour, 45-minute drive back, find a hotel to sleep in for the night, and then do it again the next day. So the first day was just purely travel. So yeah, the second day of traveling is when you finally get to the border. And again, even at the border, it's all just, give us your passports. Okay, questions, wait here for a couple hours, all the formalities of checkpoints and all that stuff. And then you finally cross through the border.
When you're going on a trip like that, I know it might be a silly question, but you have luggage with you, correct?
Yeah.
What do you prep to take with you for a trip like that?
Pack light for sure, just because you never know if you're gonna have to start pulling your luggage yourself. God forbid something happens to the truck. Packed a lot of underwear and a lot of socks, and then I just had 2 pairs of scrubs. Really, that's it. Okay. I just had 2 pairs of scrubs.
So no kind of equipment or medical equipment.
No, so I did pack that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I was able to bring in some orthopedic stuff. So orthopedics is very. It's a field that's very implant dependent. You need stuff to put into the body. Okay. It's not you can just fix things with suture and stuff. Yeah. So I was able to bring some stuff with me. So I had two kind of boxes of orthopedic stuff, and then my luggage. Okay.
Yeah. I see. And you crossed Rafah. If I was sitting next to you while you went into Gaza, what would I have seen?
I remember this so clearly. The first thing I saw when we crossed, you have the Egyptian side, you do all the questions and stuff at the Palestinian side of the border. the first thing I saw when we crossed through was just this like wave of kids running across the street. Like literally hundreds of kids running across the street. And like I'm asking the driver, like, why, like, where's everyone running to? What's going on? And he points at the distance, and there's like a humanitarian aid truck that had just pulled up. And you firsthand witness just the desperation that people are in, to where you see all of these kids. These kids should be in school. They should be playing. They should be having fun. You see a bunch of kids running to a humanitarian. I don't think they even knew what was on the truck, whether it was food, whether it was water. God knows what it was. For sure they didn't know what it was, but they saw a sign of help, and they were just so desperate that they started running to it. And that was like, that just hit me so hard, because again, I'm a father. I have kids of my own, and immediately when you see kids like this, you start thinking of your own kids. You're like, man, what if my kids are in this situation? Like, what if I wasn't around to help them? What if they had to fend for themselves and these are young kids. So we're not talking like teenagers. These were young kids that were running. Well, it's terrible. It's terrible what's happening to the Palestinian people. They're suffering big time. Big time.
In terms of destruction, was that evident as soon as you crossed?
Not so much down south at the Rafah border. So we basically went straight from Rafah to the hospital. And we spent most of our time at European Gaza, which again is down in the south. It's like the farthest south hospital, just because it's the safest. And to be honest, there's not many hospitals left. There's over 10, 15, 20, whatever hospitals normally in Gaza. There's, at the time we were there, only 2 were fully functioning.
Wow.
Only 2 in all of Gaza.
In all of Gaza, there were 2 that were fully functioning?
2 fully functioning.
And you were at one of them?
Yeah. Because what's happened is, the army has hit everything north, and it's constantly pushing everybody south. So everything in the north has been wiped out. So hospitals are either, this is what one of the representatives from the Ministry of Health was telling us, hospitals are either designated as fully functioning, partially functioning, or non-functioning. Okay. So majority of the hospitals were non-functioning.
What qualifies it as fully functioning?
The fact that they haven't hit it yet, to be frank. Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah. As long as you don't hit the hospital, it still has water, it still has electricity. Most of them have generators, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the rest were either non-functioning or partially functioning. And so everyone has been pushed south. That's the safest area. So that's where we were. So we didn't see a lot of the destruction.
Okay.
When you're driving, you can see signs that like clearly strategic places have been hit. So like a major highway we were driving in, massive crater right in the center of the highway. For sure, they're blocking off travel. Yeah. And so what the locals do, they basically build sand ramps around the side to bypass it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There was a big area of like water pipes or whatever, huge crater right in the center of it. And the locals were able to repair it. Like you can see where like the repaired pipes were, like there's like different colors and all that stuff. You can see all that. Yeah.
What do you hear?
During the day, you don't hear too much.
Okay.
There's bombing once every couple hours or so. You will hear the tank artillery shells shooting and all that stuff. Like you hear loud explosions.
Yeah.
But man, at night, it's nonstop bombing, constant bombing. Like as soon as it's like 9, 10 o'clock at night, bombing all night long. All night long. So
you were up, I would assume, then most of the night.
Yeah, you can't sleep. It'll wake you up, man. It's so loud. I don't even know where they were hitting. It's not like they were hitting right outside the hospital, or else we would have like seen but it was so loud. You feel it, bro. Like you feel like the vibrations of things shaking, man. Like you hear things shake. It's so loud.
And I'm thinking if they're bombing at night, that means the hospital has to basically accept these wounded people that are getting hit at night as well. Or am I wrong?
So I'm sure they do it for a reason. Okay. They bomb at night like that. There's no electricity at night. Okay. There's not like street lights like we have here. Like people need to remember, whenever you're thinking about what's happening over there, you can't put yourself in the mindset and mentality and the environment of first world setup.
Yeah.
So it's not like Dearborn, you got a bunch of street lights, everything is well lit at night. At nighttime, it's pure darkness. So when they're bombing at night, all you have is a flashlight if you want to find people,
Yeah.
right? So people are trapped under the rubble all night long. It's not like they have like construction lights that they can like
Right.
haul over to a new bombing area. And I mean, even then, trying to find where the bombing was at night, it's going to be difficult. It's pitch black at night, other than like the shine from like the light of the moon or the stars or something. So they're bombing all night long. People are stuck under the rubble all night long. So people aren't showing up to the hospital until like late morning, like 10, 11 o'clock.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's not like people are waking up 6, 7 a.m. and bringing people to that. Like, it takes time. You got to find out, okay, let's go out. Let's see who got hit. Let's see what buildings got hit. Let's start digging people out. And then you finally bring them to the hospital.
So when you first time you get to the hospital, what's the first plan of action? What's the first thing you have to do? Because this is just me out of pure imagination. You walk into the hospital and there's already a lot going on. You said it's only it's one of two fully functioning hospitals. Yeah. So there must be a lot going on.
Yeah, so specifically in regards to orthopedics, there was already plenty of orthopedic surgeons already there.
Okay.
Just because all the other hospitals are non-functioning, right? So people are getting pushed south. So doctors and their families are also moving south as well. So as far as orthopedics, there were other surgeons there. To be honest, I didn't know what to expect when I got there. I didn't know what stuff I had to work with. I didn't know what tools I had. I didn't know what implants I had. I didn't know what the ORs were going to look like. The plan was just to show up and help however I could.
Was it better or like worse than what you already had anticipated?
100 times worse.
Okay.
100 times worse. The stuff that they have, the medical equipment, everything that at least for orthopedics, everything that they have there in Gaza is stuff that we would consider here to be unacceptable.
Okay.
So like I said, orthopedics is very commercial dependent, very implant dependent. It requires implants. It requires things to put in. It requires rods, screws, stuff like that. They don't have any of that stuff. Like let's say I look at an x-ray and I'm like, okay, I need to put plate and screws on this fracture. I asked one of the doctors, like, okay, show me what kind of stuff you guys have. They'll open the set and it's like half the stuff is just missing because nothing is getting refilled. Yeah. Like we're privileged here. We have companies that give us, they don't give us stuff, we buy it, but we have someone in charge of constantly refilling sets and making sure everything is well stocked. Over there, once you use it, it's done. Until you're just hoping another person comes with a delivery of goods that can donate something. And so like they're just winging a lot of stuff there with whatever they have. Yeah. The way that they're definitively treating broken bones, like I said, is a way that we would consider here to be unacceptable, just because they don't have any other options. So, if someone has a really badly broken leg, we'll put something called an external fixator on, which is basically pins that go into the bone. They stick out of the skin. You connect them with rods. Yeah. And basically it's just meant as a temporary solution. It's kind of like a heavy duty splint, just to hold things in place for a little bit until swelling comes down, or if they have an infection, until the infection goes away. It's just, whatever it is, it's meant to be temporary. Over there, that's how they're treating things definitively.
Permanently. This is your fix.
That's it. That's all people get.
I have a couple of medical questions that, like, what was the case with anesthesia? Because you saw videos of and like news that there was no anesthesia, so they were conducting surgery. Did you have to do that?
No, so thankfully at European Gaza Hospital they still had anesthesia. Okay. At the time.
Okay. So you didn't have to do any surgery with no anesthesia?
We didn't have to do it, but for sure, the partially functioning hospitals in the north, for sure they don't have anesthesia. Yeah, all that stuff you see with the children bandage changes without their screaming, there's nothing you could do for that. There's like no medicine. You can't there's no medicine. Even if you want to give stuff to people, like pharmacies are closed, banks are closed, like Everything is totally different there. That's why when I try to like explain the situation to people, everything you think is normal that you have here in the States is a privilege. When you're thinking about what they're going through over there, nothing over there can, like, the situation here doesn't apply there.
Yeah.
So you don't have a car. Gas is too expensive. People don't have money. Cars ain't working. There's just cars parked all along the road. Cars don't work. Plus the streets are filled with people walking, so it's not like you can drive. You know, banks are closed. You can't go get $1,000 just for the sake of buying stuff. So even if you're rich, you have money, like, that's it. You're stuck with just the luggage you have, and you got to leave. Pharmacies are closed. You can't get medicine. Like, everything is totally different there.
Let's say a surgery that I'm not familiar how long an orthopedic surgery. I mean, I'm sure it depends on like the severity of the injury, but let's just say it takes you an hour to do here. Where did you find yourself having to do them quicker over there because of the amount of people that were coming in needing of surgery, or was it the same time?
I mean, it takes a little bit of time just to get used to the fact that you don't have your normal equipment that you're working with.
Correct.
You know? So in that regard, it took a little bit longer the first few days just to get used to what they have. Like normal stuff that I would, again, the privileged stuff that I would take for granted, my certain retractors, my certain specific instruments I use during, they didn't have that stuff there. So you just kind of have to kind of learn to adapt and like, okay, well, you know, there's a lot of like, what do you have that looks like this, you know, when you like draw something on there, you know? So in that regard, it took a little bit longer the first few days, but after that, it was just kind of
the same.
Yeah. Just as normal.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I'm pretty sure after the surgery, you just mentioned that there was no medicine. So you couldn't give antibiotics after.
So the situation, at least in our hospital, is different, right?
Okay.
So there are, I don't know the extent of what they were able to do on the floors for patients, but for like, at least in the OR, we could like give them stuff. But once they got back to the floor, I'm sure it was a totally different ball game because the hospital is so overrun and overwhelmed with patients and people in general. So when I was there, I'm sure the number's gone up since they've displaced more people. But when I was there were 20,000 people living in and around the hospital.
Really?
20,000 people. So like I want you to like we live we're here in Dearborn right now. So I want you to imagine you're going over to Beaumont, Dearborn, or Oakwood or whatever, and you walk into the lobby, and normally it's a big wide open lobby.
Correct.
And high ceilings and all this stuff. Imagine that there's literally people in the lobby sleeping. There's blankets and sheets, and people are just sleeping all throughout the lobby. Imagine you go up, you're going to visit a family member or whatever. You're walking through the hallways. The hallways are lined with people sleeping on the floor. The hallways are lined with people taking sheets and like dropping them from the drop ceiling and just they're trying to have whatever decency and privacy that they can have in a small little corner.
Oh my God.
It's not a hospital like you would normally think.
Yeah.
Like it's 20,000 people packed in. That's inside the hospital. Around the hospital, you have people taking like large plastic sheets, like what you would wrap like trucks with or whatever. And again, same thing. They'll just like tie it to a tree or tie it to the side of a building or whatever. And they'll just make these little makeshift homes. And like that's the extent people are degraded to literally having nothing. People that had homes, had lives, had careers, had everything. Now they're degraded into just like
the small corner in the lobby at the hospital.
No privacy, man. No privacy. So because there's so many people there, patients are going to get lost in the mix. It's not like for the people that like work with electronic medical records and stuff, it's when there's people living in the hallways and patients in the hallways, it's not like you can like put a little thing in their electronic medical record. He's like, hallway, second patient from the last on the right next to the fourth door. Like there's not room numbers you can put.
How does it work then?
Good luck.
Really?
Yeah. So a lot of patients unfortunately end up getting lost in the shuffle. So that's, there were a couple patients that, there was a great group of surgeons that ended up joining us from the UK. The group name is called Ideals. very, very, very good guys, very good surgeons. They would go on rounds in the hospital, and they would basically go looking for patients that were missed. And you would not believe how many patients they found. There was a lady, a 34-year-old lady. She had a really, really bad shrapnel injury around her like hip and buttock area. And because she got lost in the mix and the shuffle for 2 months, she was laying there. She couldn't, like, things weren't taken care of. She had a constant infection. She couldn't move. Like, neighbors, people around her are trying to take care of her. But again, everything is just so overrun. You can't help people out. And so finally they found her, and we were able to take her to surgery. She had some metal left in her hip. We were able to pull out the metal, hopefully clean out the infection, stuff like that. What else?
So it is very hard to get to everyone.
Oh, it's impossible. It's impossible.
And that's a fully functioning hospital.
Yeah.
Does that mean after you conduct surgery on someone and you temporarily but permanently fix the problem, you can't really keep him there for too long to see how he's going to be in a couple of days? You just have to discharge him.
You can't. Because the next day there's another wave of patients coming in. Yeah. So forget about the trauma stuff, the acute injury trauma stuff, okay? That is obviously very high acuity, needs to be taken care of right away, okay? Because the healthcare, society overall is shut down, okay? Because the healthcare system is shut down, you need to think that people are no longer able to get general medical help anymore. Offices aren't open. You can't go see your primary care doctor anymore. You can't go see your heart doctor anymore. You can't go get a checkup anymore. You can't get your daily medications anymore. So
people with diabetes.
Yes, no one's getting insulin. People with blood pressure problems, they're not getting their blood pressure medication. Again, haram, another bad case of this is, it was a 16-year-old girl. She had this bump on her leg. And her family thought it was an infection, and so they were just trying to treat it or whatever. And she would come to the hospital, and they would try to give her antibiotics and send her back out again or anything. Turned out to be cancer.
Oh my God!
It ended up haram. It ended up growing so big on her leg that she ultimately ended up losing a leg. We had to do an amputation on her. Yeah, because of misdiagnoses. Because people can't go see their doctors for general non-trauma health,
non-war related injuries.
Yes. So people are dying from the trauma stuff. People are going to start dying from these non-communicable diseases. Okay. The next wave, God forbid, is the communicable diseases. You have people living in tents. There's no sanitation. There's no Clorox wipes that you can wipe stuff down and keep everything clean with, You have 20,000 people sharing however many bathrooms are in the hospital. So eventually some kind of infection is going to break out. And you're already dealing with sick people who can't get their medication, who can't be properly sought after, who don't have clean areas of living. It's going to start killing people.
Were there overwhelming deaths at the hospital? People that you couldn't get to that ultimately pass away?
So I spent most of my time in the orthopedic operating room.
How much do you know while you're there about what's coming in?
Not much. You just kind of, so this is the craziness of it. So there's not, like I said, there's not clinics open, right? So if you have an injury, you can't go to your local orthopedic surgeon and say, hey, take a look at this. I got hit with some shrapnel, or my arm got crushed under some cinder block or whatever, fix me. So basically what happens is families and patients will show up to the pre-op area. You'll just have a swarm of people outside the pre-op area, and everyone is just begging for attention. Please. And you have to kind of make decisions on the fly. Okay, you look pretty bad. Come on in. That's not how surgery works here in the States. You work people up. You have to figure out who's who. You have to figure out, make sure people are whatever. You get your imaging, whatever.
So that was a thing. You basically look at the person. This is really bad. Come on in. Yeah. You have to wait a little bit.
Yeah. There was a guy who came in, haram. He had both of his legs amputated from injuries, from whether it was shrapnel or crush or whatever. He had both of his legs amputated because there's not routine access to antibiotics outside the hospital because sterile conditions are hard to come by, because living outside, all this stuff. He ended up coming back to the hospital with maggots coming out of both of his legs. So it's like you've treated one problem when he came to you with the severe injuries. You treated that with the amputations, and now you're having this second wave of issues come with infections, with bones not healing, with further post-operative complications because people just can't see their doctors. They can't get the medical care that they deserve. And so now you have the second wave of suffering that's basically happening.
If I asked you before you went on that Gaza trip, what's the most traumatic case that you witnessed practicing here, what would it have been?
The most traumatic case? I mean, it's hard to think of one most traumatic case just because I've been doing this, like even in residency, you know, so it's been like around 10 years of just seeing this stuff, you know, so it's not really the case that's traumatic. It's more like you feel bad for the victim of circumstance, you know, just because that's all I do is broken bones, people that fall, people that get into car accidents, people that get shot, you know, so, you know, there's the victims of circumstance that you feel bad for. And so, you know, a lot of people ask me like, what's like the craziest surgery you saw when you were there, you know? And because I do this routinely, it wasn't the surgery or the injury that was crazy because I see this stuff. What really shook me was the volume of it. Like how many innocent people are coming in. These are not soldiers, man. These are not people in uniform. These are not like healthy young males. Like we're talking elderly people and kids. A majority of the people, that's what this is happening to. These are not soldiers. These are not terrorists. These are everyday normal civilians that this is happening. That's what really shook me, was the extent of the volume of how many people were coming in every day that this was happening. And it just wouldn't stop.
When you're there and you're operating on a kid, does the father in you come out?
Oh, big time. Yeah. The first person I took care of was a little girl when I got there. She's 12 years old. She had this really, really bad open injury in her hip, infection. There was pus everywhere. And the first thing you think about is your kids, man. And like, you would think to yourself, like, everything that you would do to get your kids out of this circumstance, you know, you would die trying, you know. And these people really are like, they have no recourse. There's nothing they can do. They have nowhere to go, you know. It's not like they can just cross the border and go into Egypt. Like, no one's allowed to leave. So you have basically people just condensing into a smaller and smaller and smaller area. The people that were previously stretched out all throughout Gaza are now, everyone's getting condensed. And so what can you do?
With communications being not so easy, were you able to talk to your family at all?
So with communication, forget about my family. Imagine trying to run a hospital without communication.
Yeah.
Okay? Near impossible. That was like the first 2 days the cell phones weren't working. Yes, granted, they have landlines, but even landlines, it's like obsolete now because a landline requires one person sitting next to the phone ready to answer it. So like, let's say, for example, which is what happened the first day, we said, okay, everybody meet here at 8 a.m. We're going to meet at this spot at 8 a.m. Okay, well, let's say someone had to go run to an emergency. Let's say someone came to the ER, they had to go run to an emergency. Okay, that's one person down. Okay, another person got stuck with a patient for an extra 5 minutes. You know, he's busy doing this. Another guy had to go talk to another surgeon about a mutual patient that they had. Okay, so everyone now is stuck doing their thing, and I'm now at the waiting spot because no one knows who I am. No one can ask me questions, and it's 8 o'clock. It's like, all right, now it's 8:15, now it's 8:20. Do I go start looking for people? Do I leave the spot now and go start looking? Do I sit and wait? What do I do? You know, how do I find an anesthesiologist? I can't call someone. Like, do I go looking around for one? Like, lack of communication totally shuts down the hospital. Everything becomes so inefficient because you're just relying on, again, landlines and just hoping that you can catch someone in the hallways.
What did you do?
A lot of waiting. A lot of waiting. And it really slowed things down, man. I mean, again, people that work in the medical field can attest to the fact that when you have a patient ready to go during surgery, you pick up the phone, you tell the anesthesiologist, all right, come put this guy to sleep. We're going to start surgery. Imagine you can't do that. So now you have a patient sitting there with the nurse, and now you have a bunch of doctors who then leave the room to go look for an anesthesiologist, okay? Let's say one of them comes back and finds you still have the other doctors that are gone out looking. Right. So it's like, all right, do I come back after 5 minutes of searching? Do I keep looking around? Like everything just grinds to a halt when there's
I think that's the stuff that people don't really think about when all this is happening. And it's like, yeah, they're at the hospital. They went, and the hospital isn't really functioning. And then you come, like you're saying all these details that I would have never thought of, you know?
I want people to know when I say hospital, it's not like Beaumont Royal Oak. It's not like Beaumont Dearborn. It's not like Henry Ford. It's not like these massive structures that are in the city. Like you can easily drive by this thing and miss it if they didn't have the red sign out front. The hospitals were 4-story buildings. That's it. Like we're not talking massive infrastructure here. So this is already a tiny building, and then they don't have the latest technology. They don't, you know what I mean? And so and with all the patients and all the trauma that's happening, like it's very easy to overwhelm a system like that.
What about your family and talking to them?
Yeah. So, I mean, once a day I would just send them whenever I would, certain parts of the hospital had Wi-Fi. So if you're walking through and, you start like your phone starts buzzing, you're at an area where the Wi-Fi is finally working. So I'll just like try to send a text message or, I'm okay. Don't worry. Everything is good. But yeah, I mean, there would be like a 24-hour stretch where I couldn't text the family. And I mean, of course I know I'm okay, but they don't,
Yeah.
So I'm sure everyone was kind of going crazy here, but honestly, it was the last thing on my mind, trying to talk to people. Like it's just honestly, it's so emotionally overwhelming being there, and you want to help as much as you can, and you want to do whatever you can.
Yeah.
But honestly, you can't do enough. There's like the need is just so overwhelming there. And then couple that with the fact that you're totally crippled with the lack of appropriate equipment and medical supplies. It's just like you just feel defeated.
How long did you go for?
6 days in Gaza, because we lost the 1 day at the border. So 6 days in Gaza.
So 6 days in Gaza. To me, 2 days that are really important, or 2 times that are really important, are the first night when you're all alone, and the last night when you're all alone. Can you talk to me a little bit about the first night when you were did you sleep at the hospital? I'm guessing now.
Yeah, we slept at the hospital. They basically just like cleared out an office and they put cots in there for us.
Okay.
And so we all slept there
in the same room.
Yeah, same room. I mean, I'll say this, even us having 7 guys in one room, like we were still privileged compared to everyone else. Like I said, at least we were on a cot with a mattress and we had a blanket and we were indoors. A majority of the people are sleeping outside on sheets, on the dirt, on whatever the weather situation is. Like, if it's like 50s and stuff all night, like that gets cold. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like you're just going outside to grab something from your car and then coming back in. Like, there are people living outside in these circumstances. So even that, for us, we were still privileged relative to the entire community that was there.
What's going through your head that first night?
The first night was just bombing all night long.
Really?
So yeah, and it's very loud. Again, you feel it, you hear it for sure. It wakes you up at night. You hear the jets flying over, like you hear the engine of the jet, like as it comes and then it leaves, it fades away. And then after like a second or two, you hear like loud explosions going off. And, in my head, I'm thinking there's like 2 parts of me, like one part of me is like, don't worry, you're in a hospital, you're safe, nothing bad's going to happen. And then the other part of me is like, well, they've hit hospitals before, like, you know what I mean? This could be another one, and there's always the element of human error. What if someone pushes the wrong button at the wrong time? Like, the first night we didn't sleep, and the locals were like making fun of us the next day. Like we come to the OR and we're like yawning and we're tired, and they're like, "Sure, you didn't sleep last night. Bombs kept you awake." So, the bombing was very loud. The drones were very loud.
Was there a point where you thought that this might be it? I might be gone?
No, not really. I mean, the fact that you can hear the bomb probably means that you're safe, right? What was that movie, Casino?
I'm not familiar with that.
No?
Yeah.
Where Joe Pesci ends up getting knocked by the mafia or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's like a line that says like, if you heard the gunshot, you know that you're safe or
Yeah.
whatever. So I probably totally butchered it for the hardcore fans. But like, yeah, I mean, like the fact that you could hear the bomb, at least you knew it's like, okay, well, the bomb didn't hit me, you know? We had a rule that, you know, we were traveling between two hospitals at times.
Oh, okay. So you
Europe
didn't
and
stay in the
Gaza.
same hospital all the
No,
time?
yeah, we spent most of our time at European Gaza, and then we spent a couple days at Nasser Hospital as well. That's much closer. That's in Khan Yunis. That's where a lot of the action's happening. And eventually we stopped going there just because we figured it was too dangerous. If they end up surrounding the hospital, which is I think is what they're doing right now, like we'd be stuck there for God knows how long. And, you know, so we ended up just staying at European. But we had a rule that like after 4 p.m., we're not driving anywhere. Like if you're at that hospital, you're sleeping at that hospital. Yeah.
Do you recall having moments where you get overwhelmed by emotion over there? Because I know we were all emotional looking at the footage and the videos and all this stuff, and a lot of tears, a lot of just a lot of like sadness, overwhelming being there. Did you find yourself getting emotional?
Yeah, at times you definitely get emotional for sure. The thing is, it's not good for patient care when you're too emotionally invested.
Correct.
Right? So when you're in the OR, it's kind of like business time. Like no matter how much you cry, this patient's leg isn't getting any straighter unless you do a good job. You know what I mean? So like when you're in the OR, it's all about just trying to be perfect, trying to be a good job, trying to serve the patient as best you can. The times where I would really get kind of like emotional and stuff is when I would go down to the ER. I only did it a couple times when there was like a mass casualty event. But that's what really got me because I was seeing all of the fresh injuries come in. And, you know, when you're in the OR, you're only seeing the orthopedic injuries. And so you don't see a whole host of other patients and people that are injured. But when I was down in the ER, that's where you like start seeing all the kids brought in and they're like covered in dirt and they're covered in rubble and stuff and sand or whatever. And the sand's all over their face and in their hair. And they got these like big wounds everywhere. You see like medics and people bringing in like lifeless bodies. Like they're holding kids like this and the kids are just dangling in their arms. Like that's the stuff where, because I'm not in the OR, I'm not in like game time mode. That's like when you're in like humanitarian mode and just like, I don't know. That's what really got me, man.
Was there a scene that stuck in your head?
Yeah, when we were at Nasser Hospital, it was like, you know, 10, 11, it was like late morning, and we just start hearing a lot of commotion going on downstairs. So we go downstairs, and that's where they started bringing in all these people. And the lady that I took care of, she was pregnant. She was like 6, 7, 8 months pregnant. Like she was very visibly pregnant. And she had been like the house had gotten hit and she was crushed under rubble. And so she had these massive wounds on her legs. Her legs were broken. I don't know if they were her kids or someone else's kids, but a couple kids were brought in, like big like trauma, gashes to the face and stuff. It was bad. People are suffering over there, man.
When it comes close to that last night, you know, when time starts moving by, 6 days doesn't seem too long to a person living here.
Yeah.
If I tell you have an event in 6 days, you're like, okay, that's tomorrow. But how does time move over there? Does it move kind of slower? You know, like you feel like there's a lot going on, or do you get kind of get lost in the chaos where time moves pretty quick?
So it depends what you're doing, you know? So like the days that you're just like so busy and overwhelmed in the OR, it's like you start operating in the morning and then you look up and it's like already 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. Like that day just flies by, you know, where you're just like trying to get stuff done. And I don't want to give off the impression that I'm like on my white horse with my cape saving the day. Like I said, there's plenty of orthopedic surgeons there. And so my job wasn't to necessarily like take over and change things, right? So my job was to just help whenever I could. So if they wanted me to do a case, if they didn't feel comfortable doing a case, I would do it. If they just wanted to like take a break because they're overwhelmed, you know, if they want to just take a break and sit for an hour, let me do the case, I would do that. If they wanted me to help them and, you know, hold a retractor, I would do that, whatever. If it was talking about a patient for like complex medical decision making, like that was a thing, you know. And so, yeah, you're just busy all day working, you know. But then there are days where things might be a little slower and you're just kind of like waiting around, you know, like the communication problems where, you know, surgery slowed down for an hour because we don't have anyone to put the patient to sleep and you're trying to find whoever you need to find a nurse, you know. So those times you feel like when the adrenaline wears off, you feel it. But, yeah, the rest of the time was flying. Time was flying.
When there's this chaos happening in the lobby, do people get irritated? Do they get upset that no one's attending to them? You know, I feel like if you're a father and you just picked your son from the rubble and you rush to the hospital and no one's attending to you, you're going to start getting frustrated. It's going to upset you. Did you see that?
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, so everyone just shows up. The non-emergent stuff, the stuff that doesn't come through the ER, like families will just show up in the pre-op area, and understandably they're dying for medical care. They're seeking medical care. They just need someone to take the time to take a look at them, you know. And I couldn't be the one to do that. My Arabic isn't that good. Like I can't be the one to triage stuff. But yeah, it's a very high emotion state where people are already pushed to the edge of life. You know what I mean? Like imagine you're displaced from your home. Everything you have, your studio, everything, your car outside, your clothes, everything is gone. And you're reduced to just this plastic wrap that you have to sleep under, you know? And you've been doing this for 3 months. And now you have a family member who's now injured. It's like, how come these people just can't catch a break and they're just dying for a helping hand, you know? So yeah, it's a very kind of high emotion, high stress, kind of hearing what's going on like outside the pre-op area. Yeah, it was.
How did you keep your cool?
You just train to, you know what I mean? Like I said, it doesn't serve you or the patient to be in a like high stress mentality and all that stuff.
Yeah, but like sometimes it's not up to you, you know, like the heat of the moment gets the best of you sometimes, you know. Like did you see that with other doctors that couldn't handle the heat of the moment, that emotions got to them or they couldn't continue? Was that a thing?
Not at least not with the doctors that I worked with.
Okay.
You know,
is it hard to focus?
I mean, it depends what you're focusing on, you know, like if you're in surgery, then like I said, it's time for business. It's game on. So, no, it's not hard to focus in that sense because you have a mission, you have a job, you have a task ahead of you, and that's your focus. You have nothing else to worry about or focus. Like that's your job is to take care of this to the best of your abilities to help the patient, you know? So, no, in that regard, it wasn't hard focusing, but, yeah, I mean, I guess when you're alone with your thoughts at night and the bombing is going off and all that stuff and you don't know what to think and all that stuff, yeah, I mean, that'll get to you.
If I was a fly on the wall in that 7-doctor room, what are the conversations that I would have heard?
A lot of, I mean, that's where we would kind of decompress to each other of like the stuff we saw that day. And I mean, you still need to open up to somebody, you know? And it's nice to do it with other doctors and surgeons who kind of have similar backgrounds and, you know, like, at least with me, I'm not going to speak for all surgeons. Like when I'm having a bad day and I want to just vent, it's like, I don't want someone to come love me and hug me and like, tell me, like, I just want to have like a sounding board, you know? And so we were able to do that for one another and talk about the things that we saw and just voice our support for the people and just wishing them the best and trying to, you know,
If I was that doctor that you were venting to, what would have you told me back then?
Mostly it was just talking about the kids that we saw. Just every day there's a new kid. Every day there's a new kid with a severe, terrible injury, you know. One of the guys on the group had to pronounce a kid dead in the ER, you know. And there wasn't any adults around at the time. He was just one of the kids that was brought in. So he had no adults there with him. So his name is Dr. Hassan. He's a neurosurgeon. And so, yeah, he had to pronounce him dead, and he kind of wrapped him and held him and stuff because he had no one else there. I mean, that kind of stuff tears you apart.
No family.
No family. I mean, God knows, were they also victims of the same hit? Were they in other parts of the hospital? Were they still stuck under the rubble? Are they around looking for their kid? It's like, who knows, man?
And there is no way to know.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that last night where, you know, okay, Bukra, tomorrow, I'm heading off. What do you kind of feel? Do you feel relief? Do you feel like, no, I want to stay more? You know, do you get attached to the chaos? Like, no, like, I can't leave. There's all these people in the lobby. There's still a lot for me to do. The war's still going on. The bombing's still going on. Do you get that guilt that you're leaving? Or or is the feeling like, I'm going to finally go see my wife and my kids and my family. I survived this.
Yeah. Both, for sure. It's a very bittersweet feeling leaving Gaza. So, you know, that week that I was there, it was, you know, occasional text here and there with my wife. I would, you know, if I could catch some Wi-Fi, I would FaceTime my kids for like a minute or two or something like that. So definitely, like, the husband and father misses the family, wants to be back home and everything. You we're so privileged here that you just get accustomed to everything that we have. You know, we have a faucet with clean water that runs out of it that you could drink of at any time of day. You have a pillow. I didn't have a pillow for 6 days. And I don't want people, I'm not saying this as a sob story for me. I'm trying to paint a picture
of how all these people are living.
And who can't leave.
Yeah.
I had to deal with these inconveniences for 6 days. You have people that are suffering under these circumstances for God knows how long. Okay. Yeah, the war may be 90 days old, but it's not like Gaza was like a playground before this. You know what I mean? So, like, the small little bit the insignificant amount that I suffered is nothing compared to the lifetime of suffering that these people are going through. You know, I was able to leave after 6 days and go back to my warm, cozy bed with my blanket and my pillow and my clean bathroom and all that stuff. You know, there's no toilet paper in Gaza. The little things that we take for granted here, the things you don't even think about. There's no toilet paper in Gaza. There's no showers in Gaza. Like I said, there's 20,000 people in and around the hospital sharing however many bathrooms are at the hospital. So people have been degraded to now using the bidet hose to basically shower themselves in the bathroom and clean off. That's what they have. People are suffering. It's really bad what's happened to these people. It's really bad what's happened to these people. So, yeah, I mean, after 6 days, I'm excited to go back to my shower, to my clean clothes. You know, I've been wearing the same pair of clothes for, 6 days. I'm excited to have my clean clothes, my shower, my food that I normally have. I missed my coffee. There's no coffee in Gaza.
Really?
There's no coffee.
You didn't drink coffee for 6 days?
There was a lot of tea for sure.
Yeah.
But they said that coffee there is more expensive than drugs. So good luck finding it.
Wow.
Yeah. So like all these little things of like your day-to-day routine, you just miss all that stuff. But at the same time, you don't want to go back. You know that there's so much more work that has to be done. You know that there's inevitably going to be more patients that are going to come in, more people that are hurt. And one of the team leader for our group, his name is Dr. Akram Mustaha. he has this beautiful line, because he's done a lot of mission trips in Gaza. So he says, my body may be here in the States, but my heart is still in Gaza. And wallah, that's so true. Like, every time I open my fridge and I look, I'm like, man, I'm hungry. Like, what am I going to eat? Like, I'll think about, you know, the kid who saw when I packed like some granola bars when I was there, and I had one in my pocket, and he can kind of see like the wrapper like sticking out of my pocket, you know? And so when people see foreigners, like the kids especially, when they see foreigners there, they love like talking to you, and like they know a little bit of English and they want to show off, and they'll talk to you and stuff. And you know, he's like, I'm so hungry, can I have it? I'm like, yeah, of course, take it, you know? So I'm looking at my fridge, I'm looking at my pantry, things are full. You go to Costco, you buy everything under the sun, and you're loading up your truck with whatever, and these people have nothing, you know? They don't know where they're going to get their next meal. They don't know where they're going to get their next little bit of clean water, you know? And we have all that stuff at our fingertips, stuff that, like I said, we're privileged, we take for granted, you don't ever second guess.
That was a big slap in the face for you.
Big time. Big time. Yeah.
I can only imagine the guilt, you know, like even passing Rafah from Gaza to Egypt again. And you painted a nice picture at the beginning where you saw all those kids running, crossing the road. And now you know you're leaving and those kids are still behind and they wish they were on that vehicle with you.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's the situation there is unlike other I don't want to say every other war in the past, but it's definitely different than a lot, in the sense that in other wars, even the people that are injured, they can be stabilized and partially treated, and then they can be shipped out.
Yeah.
Borders are still open in other wars for people to get out, you know? Like when I was speaking to the other doctors in the group, one of the surgeons from Canada, his name is Dr. Anas Al-Qasim, he did a lot of humanitarian aid in Syria during the war. And he would say at least the borders were open there. So yes, people were getting injured and he could help, but at least they could get them out to get definitive care somewhere else. Nobody is able to get definitive care in Gaza. That's something that makes this totally unique than other circumstances, other wars, other whatever, is that nobody can actually, they're gridlocked, right? They can't leave by sea. The Egypt border is closed. There's no way they're allowing them into the Israel side of things. Like, they have nowhere to go. So it really is like a prison, man. They're just, they're getting condensed more and more into the south. You're having more and more people get closer and closer together under worse and worse circumstances. Eventually, all that pressure is going to explode somewhere.
How has it actually changed your day-to-day life?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you have big experiences like this, something about you is going to change for sure, you know? So I really, really feel this in my heart when I say, I'm not saying this just for like a soundbite or for show. Like, the people of Gaza, I think, gave me more than I could give them. You know, when you go in the hospital and you're working with people and they're smiling and they're trying to make you feel good and they're like, you know, they're joking with you in the OR, and then come to find out that this guy lost his wife and kids like 3 days ago and he's back at work. And I don't even want to call it work. It's volunteer at this point.
Yeah.
The Ministry of Health it's not functioning. They don't have checks to hand out to people. So everyone who's coming to the hospital is doing it on a volunteer basis. So you witness resilience. You see how people are resilient, especially in the midst of a war, you know? It's so specifically for me, I've changed. I mean, you become much more God conscious after something like this, right? So I found that my salah has changed. You know, it's like you slow down even more in your salah now. You pay attention to things. Like, certain parts of my salah now are like more awake and revived in me than when they were before, you know?
How are you?
What do you mean?
Like, if I ask you, how are you?
I feel that I'm in a better state now than what I was before that I left, because I feel more God conscious now. I feel Like I said, my salah is better. I'm not eating as much during the day. I'm like barely eating anymore now. And it's not like I'm like actively trying to do it. Like I said, you just think about the people there that are suffering and all that stuff. And it's like, all right, well, I'll just keep working. Like I don't need, like, these people have gone 90 days without reliable food. Like it's okay if I skip a meal here and just keep working or whatever, So, I'm listening to a lot more Quran now. I used to be so hesitant to like play Quran in the OR and stuff. And now it's just like, I don't care. I'm doing it, Like I have Quran on my phone. I just put it in my pocket. I'm like walking around the hospital with Quran playing and stuff. It's just, you just don't care. Like it's like, based on the stuff that I witnessed, like I don't care if someone thinks that I'm weird now that I'm listening to Quran. Like I now have this new revived connection with Allah. And inshallah it stays, inshallah it's not just like a wave. We all go through like the highs and lows and all that stuff. Yeah, I mean, those are definitely the most profound things that have changed since I've come back, for sure.
How long have you been back?
Probably 3 weeks now, 2-3 weeks maybe.
How was the first day back at work?
Man, I was excited to get back to work.
Okay.
I was so excited to get back to work. I mean, I'm kind of a workaholic, so I really love working. But I was so excited to get back to using the stuff that I'm so accustomed to. For the 6 days that I was there, I had to use like very, very, very primitive implants. In orthopedics, we do a lot of x-raying during surgery. Even the x-ray machine there was so old. And I was so excited just to come back to like I had my toys at work to play with. I had my instruments, my sets, my whatever. I was just so excited to like get back into like appreciating what I had, like when you're over there and you're going to do a surgery and you're like, all right, open up these sets for me. Like I need set A, B, and C. Mm-hmm. When you're here in the States, you just assume that the sets are fully stocked, that everything is ready, that the stuff that's supposed to be in the set is there, and you just open and you do the surgery. Over there, you're like doing a surgery and you're like, all right, open up set B. I got to get this stuff out of there. And you open it and there's like nothing in there. There's like stuff missing. And now you're like kind of panicking. You're like, all right, what can we do to think of something else? So just getting back to that almost like controlled setting where everything is where I put it. Everything is going to be there when I need it. Yeah. Yeah.
How was the reunion with your kids and wife?
Oh man, that was the best. That was the best. Any father can attest to. Do you have kids?
No, not yet.
Inshallah, you're blessed with them. It's seriously the greatest thing. It's hard, but it's the greatest thing ever.
Walk me through that moment.
The best feeling in any father's life, even if it's you're gone for a couple hours to go run errands, or you're coming home from work or whatever it is, when your kids get to the point where they can either crawl or run to the door and they say, Baba, Baba, Daddy, anything, it is the best. Like my whole day at work, I live for that moment where I unlock the door, they hear the lock, they hear my footsteps, they come running. So,
did they pick you up from the airport, or did you go home and serve? Like
my wife and son picked me up from the airport.
Okay.
And then my two younger daughters were at home. But just being able to like hug and embrace and hear their voice and see their smiles, like these are the experiences. Like you almost need to be reminded of how much you're blessed. It's like you need to get your loved stuff pulled away from you, or you need to pull yourself away from it for a little bit, just to kind of like remind yourself like how blessed you are with stuff like this. And man, those hugs were the best, and hearing them laugh and watching them play and stuff, and just being in the comfort of my home with again, it's stuff we take for granted. The fact that I can sit in my home and I can feel secure and safe. I don't have to worry about a war outside. Okay. Just to paint a picture to the listeners, over there, the way that it works is the army has Gaza blocked off into different sections or zones. So on any given day, the planes are going to fly over top, they're going to drop pamphlets, or they're going to send out Amber Alerts on everyone's phone. And they're going to say, section 21, 22, 23, leave by tonight. And that's it.
That's it.
That's it. So now you, as a father, husband, whatever, taking care of your parents, whatever it is, now you got to gamble. Okay, what do? Do I pack up some luggage, get a backpack on, and just walk out with my family and just, take out Allah, figure out what we're going to do? Or do I stay here and just hope they don't hit the house? That's a big decision to make, man.
See, the problem, I mean, a lot of people, especially immigrants, they've lived through war before. They lived through stuff like this. But I feel like a lot of people living here all their life, it's very hard to visualize that moment to where no, death is a real possibility tomorrow morning if we're here. And what am I supposed to do?
Yeah. There was one of the people volunteering in the hospital that I got to know. He was a med student. So obviously all the medical schools, they've bombed the medical schools now, right? There's nothing standing. So all the med students are just doing what they can. They're either basically trying to survive or they're in the hospital volunteering. So I was lucky enough to meet this young guy, and he was telling me how it's customary for Palestinians, before you go to sleep at night, you say goodbye to your family, your final goodbyes to your family every night before you go to sleep. You make sure your bag is packed. You have a small little like carry-on style or backpack bag. You make sure that's packed before you go to sleep, just in case, God forbid, you got to run in the middle of the night. And the last thing you do is you say your shahadatains before you sleep, because you don't know. He said that's customary for people over there.
They have to.
They have to do that. And if just think about how privileged we are. Yes, you could die, unless somehow you could die in your sleep, something could happen. But you never think to yourself, a bomb is going to get dropped on my house, or a stray bullet's going to come through one of my windows. You don't think about that for your kid. You tuck your kids in to sleep in their crib, and you say, okay, yalla, in the morning, and you go do whatever you want that night. The way that these people are living it's brutal, the conditions that they have. It's absolutely brutal.
It puts it kind of into perspective of, like you said, taking things for granted, but taking your relationships for granted too.
Yeah.
Like if I'm leaving the house, tell my mom, bye. Like see you later.
Yeah.
Big chance I am coming back later.
Yeah.
But you saying like that, like customary, like a kind of tradition.
Yeah.
Where you say you shahadatain, you go to sleep. You say goodbye to your parents. You pack a bag, you're waiting for something bad to happen.
You brought up the thing, like if you leave the house after saying bye to your family or whatever. There was an incident when we were there where the army had hit a marketplace outside the hospital. Like, for what reason? People are it's like a pseudo market. It's not really like a market.
Yeah.
It's people just lining the streets, and if you have some stuff, you just basically put like a milk crate in front of you or whatever, and you're just kind of seeing who needs what in a sense, but it was like 100 yards, 200 yards away from a hospital entrance, and the army hit it. These people were going out just for the sake of getting something that they could bring back to their family.
They didn't come back. If I came to you, Adam, and I told you, teach me something that I can carry with me in my day-to-day life from your experiences in Gaza, what would you teach me? What advice would you give me?
For me personally,
yes.
For me, the biggest lesson I learned was don't neglect your salah. No matter what's going to end up happening, we all have the same end place, right? You can't control the circumstances around you. You're going to be a victim of whatever. The only thing you can control is your relationship with Allah. And inshallah, our final abode is in heaven, inshallah, in Jannah. And like I said, the only thing you can control is your relationship with God. Nothing. You can't control anything else. Look at all the people in Gaza. You had doctors, you had lawyers, whatever. You had a society. You had a functioning society that was there. And everything has now been reduced to just a tent city. You can't control any of that stuff. All the money that they worked for, everything that they had, the beautiful house that they built for their family, everything has been destroyed. They lost everything material they have is gone.
When I thought about asking you that question, I never thought you would answer with salah.
That's the thing. That's one of the big things that shocked me when I was there. And it's like, we don't see it as much here in the States just because, I mean, yeah, alhamdulillah, we have a big Muslim population here in Dearborn, but it's not like God isn't in our day-to-day lives, especially when you're in the hospital. It's not in your day-to-day life. It's not cool to talk about God in the hospital.
Although you would think that because people's lives are in your hands, God would be more on your mind in the hospital.
Yeah.
It's not the case?
It's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
How so?
At least not in like day-to-day discussions with people and stuff.
Okay. Oh, you're talking more discussions with people.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's not like part of your like routine or whatever when you're talking to people or whatever, it's just,
it's not cool.
Yeah. Now, is that just because we have separation of church and state here in the States? I don't know. But over there, it was all about salah. Now, you're not going to leave in the middle of the surgery and go pray, but it was, they had prayer. They had like prayer mats and, prayer spaces everywhere in the hospital. So you finish your case. All right, yalla, time for salah, guys. Go do wudu, and you go salah. And then, it's like, it was just like I said, I haven't seen it here to that extent where everyone was doing it. And I was just so taken back by it, And so, yeah, now I've kind of like, I figured out that there were prayer rooms at the hospitals that I work at. And I feel so bad about this, but I probably even shouldn't be saying it. But I mean, for 4 years, I've been at the hospital. I didn't know that there was a prayer room there. I would just pray when I got home. But now it's like, okay, no, now I have to pray while I'm here. Everyone else over there prayed while they were at work. I have to model that. Like, that's beautiful what they're doing. Like, they're very God-centric. They're very God-focused. I have no excuses. I'm not living in a war zone area where my life is constantly at risk. Like, I have everything. Alhamdulillah, we've been blessed with so much here that we don't even think about, and this is like the smallest way of showing appreciation for that is to just keep up with your salah.
Would you have described yourself as God-centric before you left?
You have your good days and bad days,
But you felt like that trip really shook you up.
Oh, big time. Yeah. There's nothing reminds you of God and mortality and dependence and finiteness like the possibility of dying. Like, when you're about to die, things get real.
Yeah.
Like, I've never in my life prayed in an airport. DTW, bro, I was praying for like 45 minutes, man. I was in that room. I didn't even know they had a solid room in DTW.
Yeah.
I was like, well, if this is my last day praying, like, I got to make it count, So
does that kind of cross your mind while you're praying in Palestine? Like this, okay, I'm praying Dhuhr, I'm praying Asr, but this might be the last time that I stand up here to pray.
I mean, you try not to think about that, just because it just doesn't help you. It doesn't help.
Not even in the sense that you'll take care of that prayer a little bit more.
Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah, definitely since then my salah has slowed down. Definitely.
Okay.
Articulating words a whole lot more rather than just like, no, you definitely slow down a lot more in your salah, but I guess I never really thought of it while I was there as just because, again, the chaos and like you're trying to like just like do stuff and do the surgery and all that. But
if you have an opportunity to go again.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's not like you did it once and like we say خلاص عملت اللي عليا, you don't feel that.
I don't think عملت عليا. Like, I feel like there's so much more that I can give and offer.
Yeah.
We were the first medical aid group to go in, so we were kind of like the guinea pigs. No one really knew what to expect. So now that I went, now I know the next time stuff I have to bring with me to like really make a difference.
What would you do? What would you bring?
Like different implants and stuff, and that was really their
more granola bars.
What's that?
More granola bars.
Toilet paper.
Toilet paper.
Honestly, bro, try to go a week without toilet paper.
No, I wouldn't try it.
It's humbling, man.
Yeah.
It's humbling. That's why all the basic stuff. I didn't shower for a week, but luckily my wife packed me some wet wipes, you know? So like every day I would just like get in the bathroom and I would just like rub myself down with some wet wipes, and, you know, you smell bad and you just kind of hope that no one else can smell you, and you just kind of move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's one thing that we didn't talk about that you think we should have?
I mean, we've talked about it plenty, but if I have the opportunity to voice it again, I just want to really highlight and vocalize the humanitarian crisis that's happening. It's an understatement to call it a humanitarian crisis, what's happening there. Okay? It's bad. Yes, you see the bombings and stuff that's happening, like that's the videos that circulate, but even bigger than that is the day-to-day struggles that people are dealing with that I don't think people really think about. Like, there's no jobs, there's no school, there's no daycares, like all the stuff that we're normally used to, everything is gone. Society has come to a halt.
That's so hard to visualize.
I'm telling you, bro, it's nothing that we've never experienced it.
We read the news, we watch the news, but it's not really that far from like watching a movie, you know, because the things that we're seeing are so out of this world that you're like I don't know if a part of us is telling us like, no, maybe this isn't that real, but like you being there saying these stories, like I'm really trying to visualize it the best that I can. And I was in the war in 2006 in Lebanon. We ran through the forest to not be bombed, like all this stuff, but it's so hard to visualize.
Yeah. Even like, you know, we talk about like the tent cities and all that stuff. Even though people are organized and, you know, they don't want to live in garbage and waste and litter and all that stuff. So even though they're organized and they put all their garbage in one big spot, who's going to take it?
Yeah.
So you have this progressively growing pile of garbage in the center of the city that's eventually just going to start finding its way into people's tents, right? And then where are these people going to go? You don't have waste management over there to take care of stuff. So it's like, and just, you know, again, we're talking about I talked about earlier, the communicable diseases, like all, you know, it's, you know, you have like the mist and the dew in the morning. And so stuff from the garbage is going to start leaking out into the dirt, leaking out into whatever. And like,
there's nothing you can do about it.
There's nothing you could do, man.
You being faced with this, quote unquote, dangerous experience and you coming back, if I ask you what scares you?
What scares me now? What scares me now? I want to say that, inshallah, I passed this test, you know, but what scares me now is failing the next one, you know. It's not to say that my next test is going to be going to another war zone and stuff, but how am I going to act if one of my kids dies? You know?
That's a big test.
Yeah. I mean, you see the videos, you see the people carrying their own kids, you know, and everything they're saying, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, you know, and how am I going to act in that situation? I think that's the big test. You know, when your feet are really to the fire, are you going to live by everything you talked about, right? Like, is my salah going to stay the same? You know, it's going to come. The test is for sure going to come.
You feel like now that you say that, that feels very like am I going to say alhamdulillah if my child passes?
Yeah. That's tough, man. That is tough. For your child, your family member, I mean, the minor inconveniences that we have. If your car doesn't start, are you going to start kicking and, you know, whatever, cussing and this and that? Like, they're dealing with a whole set of problems
It's a
there
different world.
that we would never imagine, man. Never imagine. Even if you want to imagine, bro, it's you'll never feel the gravity of it.
Yeah.
I'm not to say that I'm like better and like, yeah, I witnessed it. Like I said, I was only there for 6 days.
And you said put it into perspective for you. I don't think the way you talked, it's like you're like, hey, I went there and I survived and look
No.
at me. No, you're putting it into like very good perspective. It's the little details that we don't think about that are major inconveniences. When you think about it, the war's been going on for over 100 days. We can't understand what it means to be in a situation like that.
Yeah. It's nothing compared to COVID. You know, we thought we were struggling in COVID. We thought we ran out of toilet paper in COVID and Clorox wipes. At least you still had your house. At least you still had your car. At least
there
you
is
still
no
had your washer
inconvenience
and
that
dryer.
compares to that.
Yeah. Yeah. That was like the hardest thing for our generation to go through.
Yeah.
Was COVID, you know? But we still had everything. Other than the fact that you couldn't go out and do stuff, you still had everything.
Right.
You know?
Well, it was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank
Adam.
you. I'm glad we could do this, man. This
Of
is
course.
awesome.
Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, man.